Now, Oxfordshire has some of the poorest neighbourhoods in the country. I know you wouldn't believe it if you wandered along some of the better off neighbourhoods, and particularly if you look at sort of the housing offerings that are in the estate agents' windows and so on. But 15 are in the bottom 20% in the country for deprivation. BBC Radio Oxford's Marcus Liddell's been to the south of the county, to one of the places on the list.
I'm here in Caldecott in South Abingdon. It's suburban, close to the River Thames, and parts of it are quite leafy. You wouldn't expect deprivation to necessarily be a problem here. Largely, people say they enjoy living in this part of town, but I've also been told that there are some problems as well.
It's all right, but the kids have got nothing to do. They end up on drugs, drinking, giving you cheek and that.
I think quite a few people do work, but perhaps with the youngsters, they're walking about all the time. Well, it doesn't really have a big effect, but it's if they go around in groups, you do feel a bit worried about it. And if they sort of not taunt you, but sort of say things to you, you sort of get a bit worried. I've got to get away from them,
Does that happen?
Sometimes, not very often.
There's a youth bus that comes. I think it's once or twice a week, and that helps. But I would say that probably only 10, maybe 15% of the children that could use it actively do.
The day is fine. I'm walking there to a shop with my daughter, but in the night, not really, no.
So it doesn't feel that safe?
Don't feel very safe, no.
Jayne Woodley is from the Oxfordshire Community Foundation. Jayne, tell me about deprivation. Good morning. What do you actually mean these days when you talk about an area being deprived? What constitutes deprivation?
There are 7 things that really make up the deprivation. And that could be obviously the thing that most people would think about would be poverty. So income. Are people on a lower level of income than the national average? Is there employment deprivation? So do we find areas where there are particularly high levels of unemployment? What about people's health and disability? In the county, we know there's about 111,000 people with some form of impairment, so that's quite a significant portion of the population. And then access to education, skills and training is another sort of barrier. You've already mentioned it, I think, earlier. Housing. Obviously, affordable housing is a particular problem that makes up one of the indices. Also crime. I think somebody there mentioned feeling safe, which is something that I know Thames Valley Police are working very hard on. And just generally the living environment. Is there green space? Are there things around? So there are lots of things. And I think with Oxfordshire as a county, what we found is we really need to understand what it means to be, for inequality to exist. Because it is very easy to look at the county as a whole and think, well, it's a very affluent county, it's green, there's lots of educational excellence. But if you dig lower and you go through the 7 things that I've just highlighted, then that's where you get to your sort of 15 areas or neighbourhoods, we call them, in the county that are amongst the most deprived, 20% most deprived in the whole of England.
Yeah, those when you look at those 7 headings, it's quite a wide net, isn't it? There are lots of things on which to judge. Were you surprised that we had so many neighbourhoods in Oxfordshire?
I think we are. I mean, I think we're surprised but not surprised. I mean, we've been doing this work for the last 21 years. We've been supporting lots of local charities and working with, donors and other trusts and foundations who are obviously wanting to help and make a difference. But I think what we're understanding is that we are seeing not necessarily an increase, but I think what we need to do has possibly to change. And as you've identified, those 7 things are all quite interrelated, so there's no point just trying to tackle one of them. You need to think about the consequences. One of the things that we've identified is there's around 12,000 unidentified carers. So these are young people from almost as young as 5 up to 17 that are either having to look after somebody at home, administer their medicine, get them dressed or washed. And what that really means, the consequence of that is because of the amount of time they spend doing that work, which is not what you'd expect a young person to do, it means they're missing school, so they're not achieving at school. And likewise, they're then falling behind, and they would be then classified as having special educational needs. But really through no fault of their own, because they've just sacrificed their own childhoods by not being able to go to school or attend school.
And because nobody knows they're caring, there's no provision made for them.
Exactly, and so what we're trying to understand is how can you identify them? How can you give them more support? Often just meeting other carers in a similar situation is really good for them, because obviously people then understand what they're going through if it's somebody who's doing similar things, and that can be very helpful. So yes.
What's your biggest hope that you want to achieve? What gets you up in the morning thinking, I want to achieve this?
We had an event on Saturday, and I think the overwhelming sort of level of support that we have in the county for wanting to help is just inspiring, and I think that is the reason why we published our report, Oxfordshire Uncovered, was to say this is the stark reality. If we all work together and collaborate, we can do so much to help, and I think that is the most amazing thing, that there are people that really want to help.
Thank you. Jayne Woodley from the Oxfordshire Community Foundation. There we are, 15 neighbourhoods in Oxfordshire featuring the bottom 20% around the country for deprivation. Are you surprised by that? I am. As Jayne said there, you look at Oxfordshire and it sits there looking leafy and lovely and you think, oh, everything in the garden's rosy. Not so.